What lie have you told for so long that it's become part of who you are? That I had 3 girlfriends before my first one at 24. They've got names, histories, majors, whatever. Naturally, all evidence such as photos of their actual existence was destroyed in the breakups. They each affected me in different ways. And I always carry a lesson from each. I still had feelings for the third one that never went away fully. Though she's now married. And that's why I was single for 3 years leading up to the new relationship. Naturally. As I'm confessing it here. It's all horseshit. I moved to a new city and found an opportunity to reinvent myself. So I told these stories in order to be something less than a loner loser who never had a girlfriend all that time. The girls were amalgams of crushes and friends and TV shows and movies and books. The lies careful and believable and enough truth to avoid raising suspicions at a cursory glance. It was enough that when I got into a proper relationship I actually seemed to be the more experienced one at relationships. That relationship lasted years. And only once was I caught on the hop with an inconsistent story. To this day I won't deny that I've had 4 long-term relationships. When I was like 15 years old, me and my friends got some cigars. This was my first cigar ever, and I suspect, in hindsight, the first for my friends, but we were all acting like we knew cigars, rating the cigar we were smoking, etc. I decided to one-up everyone by saying that it was an okay cigar, but not as good as a Cuban I had smoked. My friends jumped on me and pointed out Cuban cigars were illegal and you can't get them here, news to me at the time. I quickly covered up and said my uncle had brought them over from Cuba to a family gathering and he had let me have one. To this day, I am now 31. Anytime cigars come up, one of my friends will say, "Gene, you've had a Cuban cigar, right?" And I have to go, "Yep." And then brace for some line of questioning as to how they differ from the cigars we get here. And I make up some shit like, "Well, it's the way they're wrapped." That completely worthless lie is 15 years old. Basically my entire life, I'm a stealth transgender woman. So I'll lie about my past on a daily basis to cover up my birth sex. I have an entire backstory and fictional history that has become so ingrained that I often forget the truth. Even my name in my memories has switched. In childhood memories I now remember my parents using my new name rather than my birth name. I go long stretches forgetting that I used to be male until something reminds me, like not being able to have children of my own. Someone once attempted to out me at work because they knew someone who knew me pre-transition and my denial was so convincing that everyone thought she was crazy and I got massive amounts of sympathy from people. Sometimes I wonder if my real past actually happened at all. It seems so unreal now. The best friend I've ever had. Victoria Asbell. Died from a car accident 6 years ago. She wasn't old enough to drive. So her boyfriend was driving her and 2 others back from a party. And he was drunk. The night before. I was trying to tell her that I had a bad feeling about her going. And that we should have gone to see a movie or something instead. She insisted that she would be alright. And nothing would happen. And I didn't try any further to stop her. But my gut was really telling me something bad would happen. The car swerved off the road and into a tree. On the way back. Less than an hour later. She died at the hospital. Every day I told myself that I could have stopped her from going. Enough so that I started doing drugs from all the grief. I didn't come to grips with what happened until about a year ago. And I finally told myself that I did what I could. And that I couldn't blame myself for my best friend's death. On that day, I went to a tattoo shop. Told him the story. And he drew up. And did the tattoo that night. Now she is a part of me. All of my best memories in ink. And wherever she is, I know she's glad I finally forgave myself. That I graduated college. I never put it on my resume. But through word of mouth and the way I present myself I have achieved landing a fairly easy and quite high paying job due to this non-existent degree. That the reason I got out of the military was due to the injury that got me put in a WTRP program for 6 months. When in reality, after 4 months of living in the hospital, and being treated like I was worthless by Carter because I was injured. I simply had a mental breakdown and got out on a mental health discharge. That I run my own business in the field of my fake degree, in addition to my regular job, and that it pays me even better. Which is why I have so much money. When in reality, my father simply passed away when he was in his 40s and left me a large sum of money, and I use the interest to subsidize my income. I don't want to be seen as a trust fund kid, or have to tell people how my father passed and that I am horribly depressed. So I just fake being an outgoing businessman. That I have no fear. And that is why I do all the crazy things I do. When in reality, I am simply depressed and suicidal and too much of a coward to ever abandon my remaining family at my own hand. And I secretly hope that one of the situations I get myself into will result in my accidental death or murder. That I want to be an engineer. I'm about a year away from graduating. And I honestly don't give a FCK about anything I'm learning. My college experience has been fake it till you make it from day one. I thought things would change over time. But it's all the same. I'm doing well enough. But I can't see myself loving going to work every day. Still, I have these grand plans about my future in engineering. Everyone is so excited that I'm going to be an engineer. My younger brothers think I'm the man. I'd rather smoke weed and study art. That I love my wife. In reality, I chose to love her and worked hard to do so. And if I were given the opportunity, I'd happily move on with my life without her. However, I'm afraid of losing her and all the crap that would happen in my life if I tried. Kid, job, family, all will basically disappear overnight. The cost-benefit ratio is just not in my favor. And I feel stuck more often than not. I told all my friends that I wasn't a virgin. I felt embarrassed that I was the oldest of the group. The one with the most female friends. Sounds like it is a competition, yet I am the only one who has never had sex. I even went to the effort of creating fake Facebook accounts. Signing up for prepaid mobile numbers so I had a number that rang, and actually paying for a service online for a girl to talk to my best friend to convince him that she was real and has had sex with me. 2 years on. I am still a virgin, but now there have been 2 different girls that I had a casual relationship with. I am way too deep in now to turn around and say April Fools, guys. Biggest and longest lie I have ever kept running. It makes me sick. TL. DR. Faked losing my virginity 2 years ago. Friends still don't know. That I graduated from high school. I really did graduate. But not at the same time as my classmates. I failed a course and had to take summer school to get my diploma. Luckily, I still walked with everyone. I had to hide the fact I didn't have a diploma right away to my dad by saying I took it to my Air Force recruiter so he could do what he needed with it before I got shipped off to basic training. I finished the summer school and received my diploma. But never told my dad about what happened. Sadly, Dad passed away a little over 3 years ago, and I no longer have to tell this lie. My sister knew about it, but was kind enough to never tell my dad. I just didn't want to disappoint him. He is the one thing in my life that I have always looked up to. I'm sure he would have been okay with it and would have told me so. But in my mind, I just didn't want to see that small glimmer of disappointment and loss of pride in his son. It would have only been a fleeting glimpse, but would have been enough to crush me. I love you, Dad. Sorry I lied. I actually sincerely dislike most of my friends. There are few people I actually would get along with if I acted like myself. But in real situations or work, I act bubbly and happy all the time. Mostly I want to punch their faces. It gets awkward when they invite me to do things and I come up with excuses every time. I'd rather be home with my pets watching movies than hanging out with people I only pretend to like. A while back on a MMO, 2 people assumed I was female and I stated that I was to confirm it because I thought I wasn't going to be on the game much longer or end up talking to them much longer. A year and a half later, I have to call off the best friendship I ever had, admitting my real sex and how now I'm, to this day, gender confused since I felt so much more comfortable thinking of myself as a woman rather than a man. I had to call it off because I hadn't had a job for a while and was looking at being homeless, and I couldn't have them worrying about me like that. They kept asking me to move in with them. I cried so much the next 2 days and it nearly drove me to suicide. I miss them dearly, but I have moved on. This post reminds me of the time in South Park where Cartman turns his hand into Jennifer Lopez for a Mexican art appreciation presentation for school. He couldn't stop doing it and lied that he couldn't help it the whole episode. Jennifer Lopez's hand turned out to be Mitch Connor, a con man. Then Mitch killed himself, and then finally Kyle said Cartman might not be able to help impersonating Jennifer Lopez on his hand, in which then Cartman gloated that he convinced Kyle his hand was possessed by Jennifer Lopez and that Kyle was stupid. I watch too much South Park. That I'm half Italian and not half Chinese. Obligatory background. My father lived and died thinking I was his. I recently had a genetic test done to see if I had any of his health issues and found that I'm actually half Chinese through the included ancestry report. My mom would have taken that little gem to her grave. I don't speak to her currently, as I found out last month. I'm nearly 30 and my dad died a couple years ago. It bothered me and will continue to do so. But my day-to-day struggle is what to say to people when they ask me. It gets asked often. I have blue-brown hazel eyes and other less common features, so the Asian look confuses people. Note: I can pass for being not Asian because we have a fair amount of Native American in our tree and my family is mixed beyond belief. My genetic map has representatives hailing from nearly all corners of the globe. How deep my voice is. When I started high school, I didn't like how much higher my voice was compared to everyone else's and didn't wish to wait for puberty to finally fix it. The summer after my freshman year I began practicing a deeper voice and worked to integrate it into my everyday speech. I came back the following year and everyone assumed my voice changed from delayed puberty. My voice eventually did deepen. But I kept the practiced voice instead. It has been so many years that I never notice it anymore. It is subconscious. But at times I slip back into my normal voice and people ask if I am okay. I don't think I could ever go back to my normal voice full time. When I was in college, 3 friends and I encountered a ghost in the library basement. We all had the same story after it happened, which I thought was proof that it really happened. But over a decade later I'm not sure if what I remember is what I actually saw or I'm just remembering the story that we recounted numerous times. Also, when I was in college and came out as a lesbian, my friends asked me if I ever slept with a guy. For some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to say that I had. I told them of a time a gay guy friend and I were in my bedroom and we were crying together because being gay in our small town was scary. We ended up holding each other, then kissing, then briefly having sex. You know, just to try. That was actually based on a true story. We did cry and hold each other. And we almost kissed. But didn't. And of course the sex never happened. But I told the false version of that story for years when a new friend acquaintance asked if I had been with a guy. I have been telling my mom for years that I am not upset that she stayed with the man who she knows abused me for years. Now I'm freaking out because he gets off of parole the end of next month. And my mom and him are pressuring me into asking the courts to take him off the sex offenders list. I'm afraid of saying no now because I'm afraid my mom will hate me and never talk to me again. I still hate him. And I keep finding excuses to avoid him entirely. Even looked at moving to another state. When I was like 11, my friend's little brother threw a chunk of ice at my face and it hit me in the temple. I only got a scratch and a headache. But I was pissed cause it hurt. It was at recess, so I went to go tell a teacher. Then, as I was about to rat out little bro and get ice for an ice injury, I felt bad and decided I just wanted to scare him so he wouldn't do that shit again and quickly told the teacher that I walked into a tree, pointed in his direction for the scare factor. He ran away. The teacher was confused but wrote me a pass to go to the office. When I got there, the person that took my pass and read it burst out laughing and said that takes talent. Because it was a head injury. I had to call my mom and tell her. I told her the tree thing as well, and since then, Nobody knows that I decided to not get a kid suspended and made myself look stupid by lying. I've been telling the story for so long. I start to see it in my brain. TLDR. Spared a kid some trouble at school and used a tree in place of him throwing ice at me. When I was kid I was walking home from my friend's house and was going to be late. 15-minute walk, and had an extremely strict curfew. Like 1 minute past curfew is no outside for 5 days. So one of my older brother's friends saw me. Came up and offered to give me a ride on the back of his bike. I agreed, but right when we got near my house I tried to ask him to stop because didn't want to be given a hard time about rolling up with a boy. And he was my brother's friend. He didn't hear me, so I jumped off and busted the sheet out of my knee. I told everyone it was from falling while running home to not be late. I didn't end up being grounded and I still have the scar and still say it was from tripping. My name is Zan. I told my Korean boss my name was Alex because she couldn't say Zan. I was too uncomfortable to tell my co-workers it was something else and still haven't. 20 plus people at and outside of work call me Alex even though I barely recognize it after my name after 2 years working there. Multiple times at work someone claims to have seen me outside of work and called my name and I didn't even look. Even though I don't acknowledge Alex as my name. Whenever someone asks me my name it takes a moment to decide which one to use. At my last job, my boss needed me to type something in on her keyboard. And she was sick as shit. And wiped her nose on the back of her hand. I was out of sick days. So I said I had a phobia of touching other people's keyboards. In my personal life, everyone thinks I am allergic to walnuts. Since I was about 5. I'm not sure how it began. But I believe it was my grandma's baking. Whatever she made was nasty. And I apparently told everyone my tongue swelled up. I was 5. Anyway, my mom told my wife. And now she thinks I am allergic. I'm sort of okay with this. She makes sure her family doesn't send nasty walnut fudge and sheet at the holidays. Etc. I met a girl on Match a few summers ago and I fell completely head over heels. That's not like me at all, but this girl was just perfect. And into me. She quickly changed her mind. I'm guessing I came on way too strong and scared her away. Anyway. When people would ask what happened to her I would tell them that she was engaged to someone else the whole time. She is actually married now but was single when we dated. The lie just hurts much less than not being good enough for her. I recently broke my leg while drunkenly wrestling with a friend at a party. I was afraid that I wouldn't get paid medical leave from work or get any sympathy time off from my boss or co-workers at my incredibly stressful and awful job if they knew I hurt myself because I was being drunk and having fun. So I lied and said I broke it in a car accident. Between keeping up the lie at work and having to tell the fake story over and over to the clients we work with, I keep having to remind myself that around my friends, who actually were there and witnessed the injury as it happened, I can be honest and laugh about it. The point here is, don't work in high pressure office jobs. Because the kind of lying you have to do in order to play along with office politics is awful and pointless. I had just turned 10 years old and I had just bought these ridiculously cool skates. You know the ones. 2 wheels in the front and 2 in the back with my birthday money. Well, I took those bad boys out for a test run around my house. So, here I am with these black and pink skates and matching helmet trying to get some balance. Across the street in front of my house was a bus stop. I'm gliding gloriously on the road and towards one opening of the stop. Made it. I take a seat and for a few moments admire my skates. Swinging them back and forth. I get up and lose balance. But luckily my hand grabs a handrail. It would have been fine. But guess what, Motherfucker decided to make a nest behind that rail. I screamed in pain and panic. A wild swarm of wasps start attacking me inside this bus stop. I'm wearing skates that I just got. I can't get back up. I'm fucking crawling out of this godforsaken area while getting stung everywhere. I get out, unlace my skates and run. And I mean fucking running and screaming down the road. Why I didn't just go to my house. Who knows? I wasn't thinking. But from then on, if it is raining, blistering hot, freezing balls cold, hell taking over, I will not step foot in a bus stop. But I just tell people that I think bus stops are disgusting. And avoid the whole wasps from hell story. I have no concept of how real human communication, empathy, or sympathy work. I am crippled by the fear of people thinking I am quiet and awkward. So I force myself to be boisterous and clever to throw people off my trail. Somehow, this has made me well liked. In reality, I don't know what the FCK people see in me. I don't know what is appropriate or not. I've heard myself in home videos. I hate who I act like.